Hello, I'm George Gonzalez, and I'm obsessed with making games. And today's Multiplayer Monday. So I want to get into my game and show you what we're gonna do today, or what I'm gonna show you. We're gonna talk about network objects with the art. The whole point of this is to help you understand how to hide art or how to show different states for a network object. And so if you for some reason have mechanics that you need to hide an object, these are some things that you need to be aware of. And so I'm going to show you, I have a spell that will bounce off from player to player. And there's some tricks, some things that I have to watch out for, some edge cases, some things that I didn't think about. And then I'm going to walk you through that and how that also applies to the network instances and how this applies to any other network game, regardless of what you're using. Today we're using Fusion 2. It doesn't matter. It might be a little bit different, but the principle still applies. Okay, so let's go over it. So first I want to show you what it is. And it might be simple. You might think that this is super simple. We have enemies. I want to make sure you can see them. Okay, so I'm going to spawn 3 because this usually goes, or I can spawn 4, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm here trying to, and I do a circle, and this thing is going to bounce. And you see how it bounces off the enemies? Oh, if I can. Oh, there. Okay, so it's going to kill him. And it detected me. It tried to hit me. I have to fix that too. Okay, so the idea behind, let me do 2 enemies. I think. Okay, so we have 2 enemies, and it bounces, right? And it also steals mana, so it's pretty cool. So let's chat about this. I'm going to show you the code. The main reason why I'm doing this is because I've seen this a lot, specifically in Fusion, but I think it applies to a lot of games. There's usually just 2 ways to spawn objects, and I mentioned this before in other videos, but sometimes there's edge cases where you want to hide stuff, and I found one, and so that's why I want to show it today. But usually the main thing is when you spawn objects, you want to focus on, it's either in the scene. So let me show you. So let's go into the scene. Here, let's say the enemies, right? I have spawners like a collision here. So that's where I was trying to trigger. And here we have a player detection, and this calls an RPC. And this is the network object. As you can see, the game object is here. I don't spawn it, but I do spawn these. Okay, so there's 2 different things. There's network objects that can be in the scene, and there's network objects that you could spawn. And so you got to be aware of how the logic runs for the network solution. I've had the same thing happens with Fishnet. So we've done a game with Fishnet before, and what would happen is that because it wasn't initialized or set correctly, or the correct player didn't have the authority, what would happen is it would reset to 0, and it would move to 0, 0 instead of where it was spawned. So each network solution has different logic, and you have to understand that. And regardless if you're doing headless servers or peer-to-peer, there's all kinds of things that could happen, and you just need to be aware of that. Okay, so why do I need to hide art? So in my scenario, and it might be different scenarios for you, but usually what happens is maybe you don't want to spawn something. So in our example is the bubble shot. Bubble shot. In this spell, we have a bubble that moves from player to player. And so I could just have the bubble move, but it's not going to create the same effect. If I don't have enough time to like to bring back the code and show you how it worked before. There's other videos where I was doing this. I think on one of the live streams, or maybe a different network solution or a level up video. I can't remember, but there was a place where I was working on this bubble shot, and we were working on it, and it was bouncing back and forth, and it wasn't complete. And it would detect things ahead of time. And so that's why I have this, like the collider super small. Okay. So what is the logic? So what I wanted to do is we have, let's say, let me pull up Miro, because that's going to make it easier to show. I have 2 enemies. Okay. And what's happening is that when it does on trigger enter, the bubble will automatically go here, right? And it will do a trigger enter. And so it will do this, which is okay. It's like a bounce. But what I wanted to do is to actually hit the game object, overshadow it, and then move to the next one. Like it's absorbing it and then moving. And eventually I'll do a VFX to do that. I was thinking of animating it and animating it out. So it goes like, zoop, zoop, it sucks in, it scales in and out. But that wasn't working either. And I was going to make a video on how to scale things. But for now, I think the best way was to, when it hits, to hide it, set the position here, and then have it go to the next one. And that creates, if you rewind back and look at how it behaves when I'm playing with it, you'll see that it's like lines up perfectly. That wasn't the case before, and it would cause a lot of issues, especially with like if you had multiple uh, multiple enemies. And right now I do. So what happens is you check, boom, 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 and it'll bounce. But sometimes what would happen is that it would just do this, and it would never even detect these guys, or it would go like this, ding, 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 and it was super weird. So in order to finesse it, I wanted to, okay, let's dial it down. What do I need to do this? So at the end of it all, after trying different things, I tried animating the scale, um, and then I realized I'm gonna have a VFX the moment it hits. So that VFX is gonna hide whatever scaling I do. So there's no point in me timing and working super hard to get the scale to work when I can just hide it. But you don't want to just hide the network object because that's going to destroy all the logic on the network object. So you want to reference the art, and then unhide it, because I could spawn another bubble. Like another solution would be when this hits to destroy it, and then it spawns another network object of the same type. But then that would cause that each one would be a new shot, and it would create a lot of resources to just go back and forth. So if you're shooting these a lot, they would go back. They would spawn a lot of bubbles, which you could also do. But then you'd want to create a pool for pulling these objects. And then again, it's more resources. So I think that the easiest low hanging fruit is hide it, do all the logic to line it up, and then move on to the next one and keep doing that. Okay, so I'm going to show you the code because you can rewind back and look at how it works, and you'll see that it's basically a clean hit, and so it's nice. So let's go into the what did I do. In here, I have the bubble core, and then I have the outer. You can have probably a more clean way to do this is to say art components, or whatever you want to call it, and then put everything underneath, right? So that way you don't have to worry about parenting, and you can have these separate if you want. And then you can have, so you focus on hiding this. So you can still have all the logic in here without affecting anything else. So you always want to try to, if you can, separate the art from the logic, because that will give you flexibility to do different things without breaking the network object. I've seen a lot of developers that they complain because they're scaling stuff, and they're scaling like their network object, or they hide it and then they try to activate it and it stops working, or it gives errors. It's because you can't do that because the logic stops. It's the same in single player. If you disable the game object, it's not going to work. And so you have to be mindful of what you're doing. Okay, so let's go into the code. And so what happened is, you can see in here, I have a bunch of things that I played around with, and some worked and some not. But I had all these things. And what I ended up doing is I have this transform that animates the projectile. It continues to move in that direction. So if I'm animating, I just stop moving the object. The other thing that you could do is, when it's animating, is moving it towards a target if you want to. But for now, I said, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to place it where it needs to be. No animation. I'm going to hide it, move it where it needs to go, and do the rest. Okay. So the main logic is setting the next target. This happens every time it gets hit. It has a transform. And the first thing is, okay, do I do state authority? And I had this to remind me to kind of figure out a way to scale it or animate it. Does it have state authority? If not, we don't bother. We hide the art. Oh, let me zoom in just to make sure you can see. We hide the art, and we set that boolean to animate true. This will stop the ball or the bubble from moving. Okay, it's hidden. It's not. And here I would say the next thing to do, play VFX. So this would be like either like a sucking, because it's gonna drain mana, and so I would do like some kind of blue effect that will drain mana and stuff like that. So there would be like two of VFX probably that will play. One for like the hit, like a bubble hit or something, and then the other is like the drain mana. Okay, and then what would happen is, in here we set up for the position and other things. And what happens is, when you hit a target, the trigger gives you the transform. But what happens if you destroy that monster, right? So one edge case is, I hit the target and it's destroyed. And so when I pass the reference for the transform, it's a null reference. So that's why I check for null in case we destroy the enemy, and we pass the position and the ID. This is what we do to check if we've hit this component before. Okay, and then what we do is we animate the hit, and this is where I try different things too. Again, animating. I did the coroutine. We wait for a split second just to give it enough time to kind of settle. And this can be anything, right? I don't even need to animate it. You could do everything in one go. The main thing is that if I wanted to give breathing room for VFX or animations, I could do this, right? I could add seconds, delays, so that I can control how it feels. So, but most of the time, the VFX you want it to hit right away. But anyway, so I do this, and then we enable the component and we set the active true. The reason we do this is because we have another place where we disable it ahead of time so that it doesn't detect the same object multiple times. And then we set the animate to false so that it moves on to the next. So this pick direction, what it does that overlap sphere. So this is where it detects all the other enemies and it decides on one. And in here I just grabbed the first one that comes in the list. There's no specific order, but in here you could do a best target distance check to pick the closest target. That's not the current ID or the previous ID. The idea behind this is that I wanted to make sure that it doesn't get the last two people, so the last two enemies, unless the enemy is not is dead. So the main thing is I just wanted to check, and then continue on. Okay. Then in here, if it has a best target, it'll go in that direction, and if not, it will stop and it'll finish. And finish just means that it will despawn the object. Okay, so if it doesn't have a target, it will keep going. And so then the previous ID is the current ID, and then we'll check it later for the next run, the next hit. Okay, so that's the bubble shot. The other thing that we do with the trigger damage is this spot where, hey, can we hit this? Is it in the same team? Here's where we disable it to false. And then you might think, okay, so what does this have to do with networking? Because most of these things are single player and their interactions. And the main thing with the multiplayer is all these edge cases that I tested and I check out for there's still options where there are some things that are null. Like this was null, so I had to comment it out because it was trying to get the network object. As we do these, you want to make sure that you test edge cases with yourself first, especially with enemies, as much as you can, because when you go into multiplayer game or when you have multiple people go, it's going to be chaos. And whatever logic you think, especially with on trigger, enter, and raycast, you will have a lot more because you will have, let's say it's 4 people max or 10. You'll have 10 people casting spells and doing on trigger enter multiple times, and there'll be race conditions. And so you have to be aware of that. And so a lot of times that's why you have to be aware. The other thing to be aware of with hiding objects and whatnot is who has state authority. And for example, in here, let's say, so what the mistake I have right here is that it works for me, but it's not going to work for other people. So let's go into the bubble shot. So you see how in here, where is it? We set the next target. This is only happening on the host. The other players will see the ball move wherever it goes. And so in order to do this on a network, what you have to do is you can do a Boolean here like we have, like the scale, and you have a network, and let's say we have a Boolean, and it's called hide art. Okay. Then we have this. I just like to copy paste, but on art changed. Okay, so when the hide art changes, we are going to art.gameObject.set active to whatever is a hide art. So hide art to true means it's false. So maybe that's different. I don't know. Might not be the best way to say it. Maybe it was just on the spot. Okay, so we have on hide art changed. We add it on here. So this, what happens is anytime this changes on the master client, it will propagate to all the other clients. So we have in here, instead of setting it active, we just say hide art set to true. And then when we finish, we do false. So don't hide art anymore. Okay, so that is at least that. And then animate hit will stop the fixed update. So this is only for the state authority, so it's okay. And then if we want to play, for example, here, play VFX, I would do runner.spawn and then VFX. So you can have network VFX, or when you hide the art, you could say play VFX. The thing that we're gonna have to test is is the position, right? That's it, VFX. We are gonna have to figure out the position of stuff. The other thing is that we can, in here, I have some like damage VFX and NVFX. So if anytime we damage, if there is, I spawn the damage VFX as a runner. Okay? So that's the hit, like when it damages the component. But maybe for the bubble shot, because we have like an extra thing, we want to do like a sucking thing. And so we can say drain mana VFX, right? So we have extra VFX on top of that. And we can do like a runner spawn, and it will spawn the network VFX. Okay, so those are things to think about. And in order for it to spawn with the runner, you have to add a network object to the VFX. That is it. We went over the bubble shot, what to do next, what are some how it works, and specifically how to watch out for game objects, how to hide art. It seems super simple, but it's something that is often overlooked and it can mess you up. So the last tip that I would mention is remember to always use fixed update network and spawn on network objects. And it's the same for fishnet and all the other solutions out there. There's similar protocols on how to do network objects and how to handle solutions that are not using start or update, because otherwise your codes are going to run weird or it's not going to run at all, and you're going to have errors. You're not going to know where they're coming from. We'll see you next week for another Multiplayer Monday. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you have questions, comment below. I'm always here to help you finish your games, whether it's multiplayer, single player. And if you need help, Endgame Devs, I have a community where I can help you one-on-one, make sure that you can finish your game. We'll see ya.